Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I am your host, Melissa Grosbel, and joining me today is LaTina Starling. And Tina was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer at age 29 while serving in the United States Navy. During her transition from the military to trying to figure out life as a civilian, she found organizations that kept her connected to survivorship and helping other cancer patients. She knew that advocacy would be just the right challenge to make a difference for other patients and survivors. As a committed volunteer, she participated in volunteer trainings and state and federal lobby days to ensure the priorities were being heard by lawmakers in her district. When the opportunity came to work at the American Cancer Society Cancer Action Network, she took a leap of faith and was soon hired as full-time staff. In her professional role at the ACS CAN, Tina continues to work with volunteers to share their stories and educate lawmakers on policies that help to reduce the cancer burden for everyone. Her dedication and passion for advocacy have made a significant impact in the fight against cancer. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you for having me on today.
I am so excited to have you on. We talked several weeks ago and we've been trying to make this work. So I'm really excited that we finally have this opportunity to chat.
Yes, happy to join you today. Thank
Okay.
you.
And where do you hail from? Where are you living?
Oh, I'm from a little town in Texas called Tomball. So I am outside of the city north of Houston. So I reside in north of Houston, Texas currently.
Okay.
hmm
So I'm
Yep.
not going to share how warm it is here in Colorado today because I'm sure it's nothing compared to what you go through.
We're in a heat wave this week, so it's brutal. It was nice over the weekend, but now it's like okay, ramp up the AC. hmm
I know, and we're fighting turning the AC on because it's in the 80s today, and it's going to be back down into the 60s by the end of the week. And it's like, can we fight it out for just another day or two, and go back to open windows? But
Yes.
all right, so Tina, let's get started. Let's dive in. Tell us about where you were. Like, I'm assuming you were in the military when you were diagnosed. So
Mhm.
kind of tell us about that experience and what happened and how did you get diagnosed?
Yes. So it was, I would say I was in the middle of my career. So I was just getting started. I've been in over 10 years. I knew where I wanted to take my career. And I had a special opportunity to train with a CB battalion unit out of Tacoma, Washington. So this was going to be a different setup, slower pace, ramp up on the weekends, and just, have all this downtime, but yet specialize in a different type of unit. So it
So
gave
tell us
me,
kind of, for
Mhm.
those of us who aren't
Yes.
really familiar with the Navy, tell us kind of what
Okay.
that would have been.
So the Navy, they have different specialties. So the CBs, they deploy overseas to build up infrastructure. So
Okay.
whether it's a mess hall for the Army or a hospital for the Navy, they're overseas where other units and other branches deploy to kind of build up the infrastructure. It could be housing, it could be a basketball court, it could be like a school for like a community where we're overseas on the ground, just kind of help build that infrastructure. So I provided the support. So my job, I was a yeoman supporting the officers and enlisted and just making sure operationally that they transition over there, had, travel pay, making sure they're paid on time, making sure all their trainings and everything is up to date. So I was more on the back end, just preparing those ladies and gentlemen to go overseas, to do their job proficiently. And I stayed back home to just provide all different types of support.
Gotcha.
So there was a lot of downtime in between, and it gave me that moment that I needed to just, okay, where do I want to take my career the next 10 years, But I had this little gut feeling like something isn't right with you, you experiencing this pain in your chest, right side of the breast. It's hard for me to do push-ups, to kind of just push through. I had a two, he was going on three, so I had finished breastfeeding by that time, but I did have some difficulties in the beginning, and that was a red flag that I just kind of brushed off. And my doctors, they thought it was an infection or just a clogged duct, another sign of what I'm leading into. So in Tacoma, Washington, they have a really good facility for the Army, Madigan Army Medical Center. I took that downtime to really listen to my body and go to the doctors. Now, at first, I didn't check any of the boxes. I'm 29 years old. I don't have a family of breast cancer. What is this? Maybe it's just inflammation. So take these pills to kind of, subside the inflammation, and then also take another pill to kind of deal with the pain. Well, in that time, I kind of knew like, shouldn't you be doing more? Shouldn't there be more being checked? Because at the same time, I had some volunteer opportunities to volunteer with this organization called Tiger Lily Foundation. And the founder of that had breast cancer at a young age. So I'm getting like my hand held through this entire moment. No one in my family has experienced it, but she has. She's like, no, I think you should go and ask for this. So it was a blessing in disguise to, get to Tacoma, figure out that I'm going to be volunteering, also have some downtime to really listen to my body, and then also push back at the doctors to say, hey, I know I don't check the box. I'm too young. I don't have family history. Can I just get a mammogram or a biopsy? So they finally did. And this is like a month of going through all of that. The results came back positive for breast cancer. Now, in the beginning, they tell you all the margins and what it is, how fast it's growing. And the nurse pushed me a box of tissues. She was like, I'm going to give you a moment to just take it all in. And I pushed the tissues back to her. I was like, you know what? Now's not the time for me to be crying or doing this. You just told me everything. So, of course, it hasn't sunk in. Give me that moment later with family to see how I'm going to react. But she knew on paper that yes, you may be strong in person, but on paper, this we need to start treatment like right away. So of course, it's like drop everything, tell my command. And I didn't want to freak anyone out because I'm not a person. I'm like, okay, they told me what it is and this is what I'm going to do, but let's just keep calm. Like I'm okay, right? Like I just got to go get treatment, right? So my
Get
that
it
was
out of me. Like, I'll worry about the rest
yes.
later.
So that was my mentality the whole way through. Like, look, I have health care. I'm in the military. They're not going to let my family starve. I'm sure I'm going to have some type of health care. And my family, thank God, they were there for my support. So whatever I needed, I knew that going forward, I would be supported at every level. So I never had to like wake up and like wonder like what if I don't have this treatment because I can't afford it? What if I can't feed my family? Like those things were they were non-existent to me, and I would realize later how much of a blessing that is, and that is not the case for everybody fighting cancer. So in the military, going back to treatment, it was chemo, radiation, surgery.
In
In
that
that,
order?
mhm.
Okay.
And
Because we
I
said
was
in the beginning it was stage 3, so it
stage
had
three. It
spread
had
into your lymph nodes.
yes to the lymph nodes. I had to get a higher number removed, and I was like, "Oh, I had 33," and everyone's like, oh, "33." I'm like, "Yeah, you didn't have to get 33 removed." They were like, "No." I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, again, not just." I didn't want to pay attention to the details because they were going to freak me out. I knew that just stay high level with this. You're going to get your treatment, look good, feel good, all those things, keep walking. Even though I was walking like a turtle in between the treatments, I still kept going, put one foot in the other. And
Love it.
I felt like I don't know what it was, but it was something else over me to just, hey, you got to fight, you got to keep going. And what motivated me was the two young boys that I had, being married, and that I wanted to keep my career. So if I can show the Navy, yep, I'm just going to go over here, get this treatment, and I'm going to be right back to those duties. Well, that's what I had in mind. But I didn't share that to my leadership. I just thought, well, y'all see me going through treatment. Of course, I want to get right back to my job and do all these things. But
So were you working during this whole time of your treatments? So
yes,
you had started your new job.
started the new job,
Okay.
have
Through
to
your
be away.
treatment. So how was that with going through chemo and still going to work every day?
Well, the unit was a unit that was a reserve unit. So I only
Okay.
saw them once a month. There were two other gentlemen there working with me, and they would say, "Why are you here? Go home. You just had chemo." I'm like, if I sit at home, I'm going to go crazy. No one else is in the building. It's just us three. So allow me to stay upstairs. I'll still work and do. Now, those days where I just could not function, I would stay home.
Okay.
But no, I still worked. I still had on a uniform. I still continued on because they gave me that room to, take on treatment and both work.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
And now
Um,
those were the days before, you could work from home kind of thing,
yes.
right?
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Much more. I mean, the military, they were not, it wasn't even a thought. Like, it was
Yeah.
like, what? Work from home? Maybe I can access my email on the mobile device, but it all had to be controlled with the government parameters and security and all of that.
Right.
But,
All that
you know,
security.
mhm. um, so I got through that. I lost my hair, of course. And it was a running joke about G.I. Jane shaving her hair and being bald and being in the military. And I was like, yeah, yeah, yeah. I just don't want to wake up with it on my pillow. So my sister was like, are you sure you want me to do this? I'm like, yes. Take the clippers, shave it all off so I could just get past that point. And then they provided wigs. So I did have a wig that everyone said that I resembled my grandmother while wearing it.
Oh, thank you.
And she was a beautiful woman. So I
Good.
I didn't, I was like, oh, I look like my grandmother. And everyone would look at me like, it's just eerily weird how you look just like her with that wig on. And I call her my angel because I think she did visit me through all of this because you do take yourself to another level of just your awareness. You're just trying to, they changed my diet. I had to meditate, I had to pray, I had to do all those things to make sure I didn't lose my mind
Gotcha.
through it all. So
Hmm.
yes.
Okay. And
Mhm.
so you made it through all of your treatment.
Mhm.
And then what happened with the military at that point?
At that point, it was being in the office full time with a new division because I had to be reassigned eventually. I couldn't fight it any longer. So being reassigned to a different unit and now having a different chain of command, they didn't know me professionally and what I
Mm.
brought to the table. So I did not have anyone to fight for me to make sure that I could reenlist, that I could pick my next set of orders and move on to the next duty station. Um, and that was disappointing. It really was. It was disappointing because I did the hard part. Now let me get back to my job, which is the easy part because I know this, and it came down to where I was this close, not even a full point away from making the Chiefs board in that process because I was still I was still study my job and just but there was some type of program at the time where it came down to me and another gentleman. Well, his chain of command fought for him. My new people that were in my chain didn't know who I was, so it kind of leaned towards the other guy, and I was told to separate. And being told to separate when you just finishing chemo and you're told, well, just go to the nearest VA for your follow up care, and I'm like, what? Just like that. So I had to figure it all out within a matter of months.
Wow.
So when they tell you when you transition it out, you really have to plan it. I didn't have any plan time. I had just finished treatment, going to the doctors every other month, every other week. And then now I got to get out and, okay, where are we going to live? So we moved back to New Jersey. All right, we're going to stay with family. We're going to figure this thing out. And I was there for 2 years just trying to figure it out. I was told you can come back and reenlist, but you have to reenlist with a different job and you have to have broken in service and all these things. And I was just like, you know what? Why? And no one could really give me an answer why. Like, why would you make me do that? So I got angry and I just walked away. I said, you know what? I'll figure it out. If I want to come back, I'll do whatever it is to come back. Well,
Now, do you think that you were told to step aside because of your cancer, or just because it was a new job and the other guy had people to fight for him and you didn't?
I think because not everyone knew. I mean, they knew that I was away getting cancer treatment, but I hope that that didn't
Okay.
hinder my reasoning for going. I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt and say that his
Okay.
chain of command fought for him because I didn't have that. All of my officers and chiefs that knew me, they were on the East Coast and had went on to other. I mean, and there was a commander that knew me at the reserve unit, but she was a reservist and she was a commercial pilot, so she knew the story, but it was a political thing. I really hope that it wasn't, because then it's like you guys owe me, right? Because you're not
Right.
supposed to do that to someone who's. And I was labeled fit for active duty again. So it
Okay.
was just a big old confusion, and they probably never dealt with someone who had cancer who is in this situation. So they were doing the best that they could, but I would, if I could do it all over again, I would say, hey, this is what I want. I know you guys don't know me, you don't see me, but this is what I want to do. Make sure you make this happen. And if I can't do that, what are my options now, instead of having me go all the way to the end and say, well, you got to get off here. And there's no other options, instead of, come back and see us, go back to a recruiter and re-sign up. Like, I wasn't trying to do that. So they made it more difficult than they needed to be. But again, advocacy, you have to stand up for what you want and what you want in your gut. So
So transitioning to civilian
Mhm.
life, was that
Mhm.
was that difficult?
Yes, it was difficult because I had to still do follow up treatment or some type of screening for the breast cancer. So, going to the VA hospitals at that time, there were not a lot of women transitioning out, or just not a lot of women's services available at the different VAs. And the one in New Jersey really didn't have like a women's clinic like they do now at certain VA hospitals. So I was referred out in the community for care. And that's just to get a simple mammogram. Like, with the majority of the men being seen at the VA in New Jersey, they just didn't have no doctors for women, no services for women, screenings, no mammograms, no nothing. So they
Gotcha.
sent me out. Luckily, they did send me out, and it was at a Robert Wood Johnson foundation. Were able to give me my screenings and anything like womanly things that I needed to take care of. They handled it, so it was
Oh,
good.
good.
So they gave a sense of comfort. But again, I don't have a job. I don't know what I want to do for school because I wasn't planning on that. I was dead set on getting orders and going back to Washington, D.C. I got close being in New Jersey. So I think I did I did a lot of volunteer work. And that's how I discovered the American Cancer Society. I did a couple of other ones too, like their advocacy days in DC. So I was kind of hooked on that. Like, oh, so I get to travel to DC and meet these lawmakers who are in the full suits, and it can be intimidating. I'm like, but it kind of reminds me of my military service where you have to, go and speak to your commanding officer or executive officer and just be in a room with what we call the brass, the higher ranking military. And I just compared the two and say, hey, I'm built for this. I can go in with my notes, talk my key points, leave it on the table with them. They say yes or no, or meet with the staff. Like, I felt like, okay, I can do that. This is professional setting. I can do this. So, but I didn't know what advocacy world was all about. Like, I just did a little piece. And then when I got fully immersed in it, once we moved to Texas, then I was like, oh, this is a different level. Okay. So the political science majors, like you all study the habits of people. I'm just like, why can't you just co-sponsor this bill that
Right.
would give people like it wasn't clicking for me. And I would go back year after year to DC and the lawmaker would give me the same little spiel or I can't vote on it. I'll make sure my colleagues take it very seriously and being told no, 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 no. And finally getting a yes. And you know why he said yes?
Why?
Because I led with I'm a veteran, I'm a Navy veteran, and I was diagnosed with breast cancer on active duty. And then it was like, oh, so tell me more about your Navy career. I'm like, I'll give
Hey,
you a
use what you got, right?
use what you got. So that kind of opened the door, like, and it's like, why did I have to share that piece of information? I'm here as a constituent. One, oh, by the way, yes, I'm a Navy veteran, and I know how much you support military veterans. So I'm going to need you to listen to what I have to say and make sure you point to me the right staff person that can read this bill language and get back to you on which way you should vote.
I mean, come on, you've been to Washington D.C. You know the
Mhm.
answer to that question. Why you
Mhm.
have to use your, you have to use whatever you can
Mhm.
to get
Mhm.
your foot in the door for somebody to actually
Yes,
listen to you. And it is unfortunate, but
it's
it is a fact
unfortunate.
of life,
Yeah,
especially in Washington.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Now is advocacy and lobbying, are those the same thing? Are they just a different level of the same thing? Like when you went from volunteering to actually
Mhm.
working for the ACS?
So the volunteer work was I say advocacy is like the you're describing what you're doing. You're advocating. And the
Okay.
actual lobbying is just the term that you use once you step foot in a state capitol or in those halls in DC. So you're actively lobbying a free pay, not paid. I'm not a paid lobbyist, but that's just the terminology that they kind of go hand in hand with each other, but
Okay.
advocating is just, you
Sharing
have
your story.
you're sharing your story, you're showing what you're passionate about, and you're showing the issue and why it's important to you. That's advocating. Like
Okay.
you're fighting for not only yourself but a group of people. And then the lobbying is the actual, action of it all. Like I'm coming, I'm giving you these talking points, I'm leaving you material, I'm leaving you references, and all of this is backed by research. All these policies are. So it's when a new volunteer comes into play, I was like, look, forget about the word lobby. You are the expert of your story and why you are here. You don't need to know all the facts and figures. There's a folder with all this material. We don't even want you memorizing that. Just show up and say what you are, what your story is, and that's enough. And then that relieves a lot of pressure off. So,
So now as a volunteer, what are the I don't want to say opportunities, but who do you get in front of as a volunteer advocate, and like what are your volunteers looking to accomplish and
mm.
where, as far as like sharing their story and advocating for whatever research or whatever you're looking for?
Um, so the first thing is starts with a story. Like this is what happened to me, or this is the connection to the bill that we're talking about. So
Okay.
I'll give you an example.
Sure.
Right now, the Texas state legislature, they're in session. We got about 3 weeks left, but one of the priorities for the state was a prostate cancer bill. So we know that Texas men are not getting screened, and we know that that number is even higher amongst the veteran population of men. So we partner with other organizations who have the similar idea, meaning zero prostate. So, okay, we're going to bring this bill forward, and but we need a story. Who can connect to this story? So that's where I'm meeting volunteers. And right off the bat, it's, oh, well, I'm a prostate cancer survivor. And I think this bill is, I mean, had I got the out of pocket costs waived, then it would have made it easier for me to get my screening. But I know so many other men who are at high risk, and this is a problem for them. So then that's how you get it in front of them. And then they know the importance of it because they've gone through it. They know, okay, this is going to benefit so many other people. And it's
So is this
making
like the public comment portion of, when they're working on bills? Is that
It
what?
can be, yes.
Okay.
So that prostate cancer survivor will provide his own testimony on the bill,
Okay.
to be heard and everything. And we're there to, of course, media training and to give them some other talking points. But again, we don't want them to know all the in and outs of everything. It's just share your story in front of that lawmaker. And he's going to listen, especially if he's a constituent in that member's district. So
Gotcha.
that's how we kind of put it all together.
Okay.
And we're strategizing long before to kind of say, go in this community, meet people, meet volunteers, because it is a numbers game. And I'm sure there's more prostate cancer survivors in the state, but those that are ready to share their story, those are the people that we make sure we introduce ourselves to, let them know the bills that we're working on, and give them the opportunity to, do you want to share your story? Do you want to help others that will potentially be affected by this, like you? And then when they say yes, then we get the ball rolling. And then it's just movement at each level of government or each step in the government until the bill gets passed. So,
And that's kind of your job, is to open the doors and get people the appointments, or,
mhm.
you meet with the volunteers and then you get them in with the right lawmakers to be able
Yes.
to share their stories. Okay.
And, some volunteers already know who their lawmakers are because they have a relationship with their lawmaker. They may have gone to high school with them. They may go to church, or they probably just, whatever the connection is. And then, that's the second question, all right, we know that you have a cancer connection, but do you have a relationship with your lawmaker? And that's helpful because,
They'll
you call
listen.
them, they listen, and you're a voter. So those two things go hand in hand. And when I'm describing that to people, they're like, oh, so I can meet with them? I can go to Austin? I can go to there? Yes, you can. Email them. Let them know who you are. You voted for them. They work for you, and use that. So,
Gotcha. And then
mhm,
you said that you get to go to Washington also.
mhm.
Now, do you take volunteers to Washington, or do you actually get to lobby yourself?
So I'm a registered voter, so I make sure I go into my representative meetings as well. So yes, we get to take volunteers to Washington D.C., and these are our lead volunteers. In there's 38 districts in Texas, so we try to fill all those spots and bring majority of the people. So we have about a big group, 50 people traveling from Texas, and we're going there. We meet with our two senators, and it's a 4-day event that they do for our leadership summit and lobby day. The first, they get to know who all is there, and then the other couple of days is to train and to kind of go over the ask and what we're going to be talking about, and then just them getting comfortable with sharing their story. And our volunteers, they love it. For our first timers, it's a little overwhelming because it's a lot of walking. But I say, look, this will be the best 4 days you ever spent, because not only are you there for yourself, but you're there fighting for people that don't even know that you're fighting for them. So it's a rewarding experience. And of course, we get to celebrate the volunteers who've done great work throughout the 50 states, because it's all 50 states representing, sending their lead volunteers. And I enjoyed going when I was a volunteer, because that gave me a sense of purpose and to keep fighting. Because look, if I can bring this issue all the way to DC and they're listening to me, imagine the work that I could do back home in the district. just by showing up at a farmer's market and having a table and just sharing resources, and that, hey, if you want to talk about your story, connect with me. I'll make sure that you are speaking your truth, and then also having a lawmaker listen to you as well.
Now, is your job just volunteers in Texas, or do you work all over
Um,
the country with volunteers?
just volunteers in Texas.
Okay.
However, because I served in the Navy or the military, and I know people everywhere, if they're, say, like if someone say, hey, I saw that thing that you posted on social media, how can I do that in my state? And then I will go in and connect them with that person, that grassroots manager that's in Louisiana, and make sure that, make the warm introduction, because we do know people from all over. And if someone wants to do the same thing that we're doing here in Texas and Maryland or Louisiana, I just connect them with that staff partner or that staff person there, and make sure that they get going and on, doing some of the activities there too.
Okay. So say if I wanted to volunteer and
Mhm.
I'm in Colorado, I
Mhm.
would just reach out to you, and this is for anybody in the country who's,
Mhm.
interested in volunteering. I
Yeah.
would just reach out to you, and then you could kind of point
Mhm.
me in the right direction as to who I would need to contact.
Yes. So we have our volunteer community. The pandemic really created like some really cool things out of it, right? So we have this volunteer community online where I can send you a link and you can register. And it's a couple little modules that you go through, and then you're all set up for your state. Now, I'll also introduce you to that person there, just so you know who to expect to get a call from. And we have monthly calls, we have trainings to go to, and little newsletters to keep you in the loop on all the things in Colorado. And it's amazing how big the work is, and but it's all, we all have the similar issues, the same challenges, even though it's Colorado and Texas. And right now, the biggest thing is Medicaid cuts, and that's all hands on deck, all 50 states. Yeah.
Now, what is the best way to get a hold of you if
Okay.
somebody is interested in volunteering or wants more information about the ACS CAN?
Okay. So, LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn. My name is LaTina Starling. And
Okay.
on Twitter, it's the same name, LaTina Starling, or what is it, X, formerly Twitter. I get the
Right,
name.
whatever. That thing.
The thing. So,
Okay. Oh, and
LinkedIn.
I'll put that in the show
Mhm.
notes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And just like reach out to you and say, "Hey, I'm interested in
Mhm.
volunteering, can you kind of hook me up?" Or
Yes.
okay.
Yes. And then, it'll be like a, just tell me, what your cancer connection is, because not only can you advocate for the American Cancer Society, you can also become another type of volunteer. You could be a, what's it called? Road to recovery. So if you have like free time and you want to drive cancer patients to their treatments, that's another opportunity. So it's, not everyone may be comfortable doing the advocacy piece, and I'm okay with that. But we'll definitely find like a volunteer role, especially if you want to give back in any way.
That's wonderful. And now
Yes.
what if you like don't have any connections with your lawmakers other than the fact that you voted for them? Can you still
Hmm.
do this?
Yes, you can.
Okay.
One of the trainings that we do is, it's called a power analysis. So it's okay if you don't know who your lawmaker is. Some people probably won't even know their name, especially if you're not, a regular voter. And you don't, I mean, we want you to be a registered voter, but that won't disqualify you from from being a volunteer. So it's this activity that we do is called power analysis, where you're basically studying and researching who that lawmaker is, down to who is donating to his campaign. So if you don't know them in the beginning, when you're halfway or 3 months into the role, you're going to know a little bit about them. And that's going to grow each legislative session, each time a bill comes up that we're advocating for. So you'll get a chance to know your lawmaker. It took me maybe 2 years to know who my representative was at the time, just because I was like, okay, what is this? I don't know what's going on. But I had to meet him or his staff a couple times just to, okay, now I understand. Now I know what he does, what he supports, what he doesn't support, And because social media is so powerful, I don't recommend that people do it disrespectfully, but it is okay to call out your lawmaker on Twitter because that's where they all are. They have accounts there. And if it's something that you're not being heard on, tweet them. Say, hey, I'm coming to DC. I'm talking about X, Y, and Z. I hope that you're there. I would love to talk to you. If not, I'm looking forward to meeting with your staff. And that's a great way to put them on notice that you'll be there.
I'm coming. Look out.
I'm coming, look out, and you're going to see the blue shirts. We give everyone a blue polo with the logo on it. And imagine you're looking down a hallway and you're seeing hundreds of people in blue polos. People know now, oh, that's that's ACS CAN or the American Cancer Society. So showing up in numbers, it helps. It really does.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the more the better, definitely.
The more the better, definitely.
Okay, absolutely. Awesome. So if you're interested in volunteering with the American Cancer Society, you can reach out to LaTina and she will get you hooked up.
Yes. Yes.
All right. And so, I mean, basically, and that's a lot of what this podcast is if you had never been diagnosed, like this whole career path would not even have been a thing for you. And it sounds like it's very fulfilling for you and you love it and you're very happy, with what you're doing these days.
Yes. I always say it's kind of like, when you're going through something and you kind of make it out on the other side, you have a lot of time to think. And for me, right in the beginning, it was like, okay, I know this is my circumstance and what I'm going through, but I need to focus on something bigger than me. Now, not to say that going through treatment, chemo treatment, losing your hair is not a big problem, but it was healing to help others. This entire journey from 15 years ago, like just it's healing to help others. And before you know it, you look up and you're like, oh my God, so I forgot my cancer anniversary. This is the year or the month that I had it. Like I forget those days because I'm so busy in other work that I'm forgetting about me in a good way. Like I still have a happy life. I have a husband, kids, and all of that. But just to be, unaware of your own circumstances and knowing that I'm doing good, not only for myself, but others, it's healing. It really is.
I love that. I hope to get to that point someday. Oh. I'm coming up. June 1st is my 2-year cancerversary when I finish treatment. And
yes.
Although I do have a very good head for dates, like my husband is just always amazed at how I can remember, dates and anniversaries and birthdays and special events and everything. There's like, sometimes it's a curse because I remember when people pass on and remember the date and stuff too. But, I'm working on getting to the point where it's no longer really about me and it's about, being able to help others and do for others.
Well, I don't have a good memory anymore. So I envy you, Melissa, on that. But I keep it in a calendar.
There you go. And that's all you need, right? We have everything at our fingertips now that we don't have to remember anything.
Yes.
Like, God forbid, if I ever lost my phone, I wouldn't know anybody's phone number.
Me, same.
Remember the old days when you had to remember people's phone numbers and now it's in the phone. I don't even have to look at it.
Yes, I do remember that. Oh, we all would be screwed.
Yeah, absolutely. I know my husband's phone number. I know my daughter's phone number. So as long as I know those, then, I can get somebody on the phone.
I only know mine. Well, you know what? Thank you for having me and sharing my story and a little bit into what I do. But, hopefully what I said today inspires someone to kind of come off the fence and, want to share and want to be a part of this work. Whether you choose to volunteer with the American Cancer Society or another organization, like now is the time to kind of step forward and say, you know what, I want to do something about whatever I'm passionate about. So it
I
really
love
is
that.
healing.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing that. And, I asked all my guests at the end. So if you were to come across somebody who was just diagnosed with cancer or they're kind of in the midst of overwhelm of a diagnosis, like what's one piece of advice that you would give to somebody kind of in the whole muck of a new diagnosis?
I will say trust your gut with whatever feelings that you're having and put them on paper and let it be known to your care team and your support system. And just you got to kind of psych yourself out. I know that's probably not the best advice, but just, don't get too far in the weeds with it. If you're a happy person, put on some Bob Marley music and just kind of, I won't say forget about your troubles, but music to me was the one thing that kept me sane, and just whatever you could do to feel good about yourself on the inside. If you can smile every day and wake up, that will get you further along the day when you're going through all of this. So, music and a smile when you can, it really will turn things around.
Love that. Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me
Yeah.
today. I really appreciate all of this and going to put the information in the show notes. If people want to get in touch with you,
Mhm.
find out more about volunteering, they can reach out to you that way. And, I just appreciate your time today.
Yeah.
So thank you again so much for being on the show.
All right. I appreciate you, Melissa, and take care.
All right. Have a great rest of your day.
All right. Bye bye.
Bye bye.